Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now a lot of you have already been asking me for completion guides, exploration guides, Kang boss fight guides, so we are gonna start with the first one, and that is going to be the completion guide. Now for the most most of you who are in rush and don't want to watch the full video, then you can just take a glance right here. One second, where's random text? Here we go. This is the short version of the guide. I will show it again at end of the video, but as I go through every quest, I will obviously highlight these paths again, but these are in general the easiest paths that I think most people should choose when doing their completion runs. Right, so that being said, let's just jump straight in it, and obviously we'll cover all the boss fights as well. So in 741, there are actually 3 paths that you can do relatively easily based on what champions you are comfortable with and which champions you have. On the far right side, we have a path, Shake It Off, Warpath, Rust and Ruin, and Aggressive. And the base idea is you're going to be getting a ton of debuffs, and your skill attackers are going to be purifying them by dashing back, and if you intercept the opponent, they're going to be getting a massive degen. This entire path can be done in a couple of minutes with Kingpin specifically. Moleman probably does it as well, but Kingpin was an absolute beast on this lane. So if you do have Kingpin, Moleman, probably Shang-Chi, you can do this path extremely easy if you feel comfortable with intercepting. Alternatively, we have this path. We have Relentless Mutation, Healing Factor, but the most importantly, Unlimited Power. Now, 3 out of, actually probably 4 out of 6 fights here, Ronan can stun lock. It does have unblockable finale, which is annoying, but if opponent stun locked, it doesn't matter. So we have Unlimited Power, and this is very easily stun lockable path by Ronan against Void, against Black Widow Clairvoyant, against Anti-Venom, and I think it actually should work against Kraven. I'm not 100% sure. But for the other path, you can just bring in whatever mutants you have, bring in your APOC or with whoever you like, and you will do just fine. The path went extremely quick. If you do not want to do any of those options, and I think fairly straightforward option here is the Paradox debuff. Every time you parry, you're going to get 2 debuff charges, and after 2 parries, their unstoppable is going to go away. And after that, you just have increased buff potency. So that's all you want to do. You can use any champion here that does not debuff much naturally and relies on buffs. So you can bring in your Hercules, you can bring in your King Groot, for instance. You can bring in a bunch of different cosmic champions. Just make sure that they do not naturally debuff heavy, or you're going to have problem dealing with Paradox. So you want to use champions that, again, do not debuff on their own, because every time you parry the opponent, you will place a stun debuff on them and also an armor break debuff on them. And that's obviously going to help your damage, and you're going to have increased buff potency, and yeah, that's it. You're going to do a ton of damage. The one fight that is tricky, there is Penny, but again, if you have set yourself up right with increased buff potency, you're going to disable that shield extremely quickly. Just be aware of that fight. Alternatively, also be aware that Emma might be slightly annoying if you do not have enough Paradox charges entering the fight, because while she is in diamond form, you will be unable to parry her because she's stun immune, and with that you will also be unable to place an armor break. So before you enter into Emma Frost fight, you need to have some Paradox charges built up. That's it. So those are the easiest options. Whichever one you choose, whether cheese it with Kingpin or cheese it with Ronin, it's up to you. When it comes to the boss fights down below, I think ultimately the easiest one is Guillotine 2099. Anybody can really do this fight pretty much, but ideally if you do have attacker that has access to shock, you're going to have even better time. Black Widow Deadly Origins pretty much just needs to get to 1 level 2. Similarly to Nebula, just build up the shocks, drop a level 2, she's going to go down, and you can by definition use kind of pretty much any champion, because it does have the high voltage node where she's going to be putting shocks kind of on herself as well. But ideally, any champion that has access to shocks here will do well, and shock vulnerability will help your damage output. Darkhawk is actually really easy boss with King Groot specifically also, because you're going to be getting tons of Furies, and Special Connoisseur is going to be giving you very potent prowesses. Every time you're going to dex, you're basically going to get a prowess, and King Groot does have 300% increased burst damage against robots, so King Groot can destroy this Darkhawk like nobody's business. or some other champions that have access to a lot of fury buffs. But I still think the guillotine is the easiest boss. Right, so let's exit this quest, move on to the next path, and that is going to be 742. We can see that 7.42 has the Sabertooth boss, and the rest of them, we're going to get to them too. But initial path, I do think that Arcane Zeal is one of the easiest ones, because you do get prowesses, and you have this Power Shield 2.0, and yeah, if you do not get rid of their armor ups, you're gonna get shocked. But, well, you can bring in Doom and you don't care about it, or for most part, Mystics are just gonna nullify it. This entire lane was pretty much cleared by Black Widow, Clairvoyant, and like Dr. Doom in a few minutes. It was very quick, very easy, nothing to stress about there. After Arcane Zeal, we need to take a look at Paradox Knockdown lane, wherever it was. 1 second. So this is Paradox Combo. Paradox Combo is also one of the paths that I can recommend. For every 5 hits in your combo meter, you gain a Paradox charge. The attacker gains 30% debuff duration for each Paradox on the attacker. Whenever the attacker activates special attack, remove 1 Paradox charge from them. Then, you know, initially you're going to have that concussion on, but you do have Kinetic Instigator, which lets you get to a ton of special attacks. And this lane was an absolute child's play, for instance, with Kingpin, with Mr. Sinister synergy, where you just end up spamming special heavy attacks in the corner because opponent is stun locked for forever. Because whenever opponent uses special attack with Mr. Sinister synergy, they would put a power lock on themselves, and thanks to Paradox charges, you basically just have really long duration on that special lock. Get opponent in a corner, spam heavy attacks. Heavy attacks don't add much to your combo meter, and whenever you do need to get rid of some of the Paradox charges, just use a special, 2 or 3, and that's it. But alternatively, again, that increased debuff duration can let you do similar thing with a ton of champions. You can stun them for a really long time, or you can power lock them for a really long time, and then just spam heavies as long as you want and use special attacks accordingly. So it was quite an easy time. And the last one, in case you do like Paradox nodes as well, was not this one, was on this side, and that was the Paradox Knockdown. So they are starting with, your champions will start with a power lock. However, whenever you knock down, you get a Paradox charge, so just heavy opponent 3 or 4 times. But then you have debuff potency increase, and this entire lane is basically damage over time lane. Any champion that does damage over time is going to absolutely destroy this lane. So I use like Black Widow Deadly Origins, we even I think use Joe Fixit and Massacre and whoever you want. Anybody that does damage over time effects is going to have some crazy numbers on their dot lane. So Paradox Knockdown, I'd say, is probably the second easiest after that Mystic one. The Paradox combo can also be quite cheesy. Right, and now up to bosses. So we're going to start with Sabertooth. Sabertooth is getting a bunch of those big furies every time he throws special attack, and you can basically not reverse his healing. He's immune to bleed, and he's also immune to power manipulation. However, those furies do expire quicker for every debuff on the defender. So long as you have plenty debuffs, you're going to have no problem. So for instance, Diablo can do this fight extremely well. I did it with Nimrod. You can do it with Warlock, or any other debuff heavy champion. Like Sunspot would do very well here. I know APOC or whoever, because you can still reduce Sabertooth healing. You just can't reverse it. So Despair Mastery does the job. As long as you have lots of debuffs on the opponent, they will not really be able to heal anyhow. Just keep in mind that there's a bleed immunity. So the key here is just have a ton of debuffs on Sabertooth, or use Nimrod, or use Warlock to, degen him all the time. Right, but yeah, any debuff champion is going to do fantastic here again. Like Diablo or Immortal Abomination melted that Sabertooth. Immortal Abomination was an amazing champion for that fight. And this Crossbones is kind of cheese fight as well if you have Bishop or if you have Warlock, because you can get shocks placed on you on purpose with the Galvanize node and then just watch basically that Crossbones melt. Overall, you can do this fight pretty much with anyone. Just remember that he's either going to be fully unblockable or you can't hit his block. You can bring in White Magneto's pre-fight. That means that Crossbones can't shrug off your parry stance, and you're going to have very, very easy time. So White Mag's pre-fight, Bishop, and Havoc. Another interesting thing that you can do here, because it's Crossbones, is you can make any mutant a horseman. And if they debuff the opponent, then your champion's going to be basically unblockable the entire fight, which is quite fun too, because of the horseman ability and Crossbone shrugging abilities. So fairly easy, nothing too crazy. And Yellow Jacket, again, is a fight that is a bit more annoying because of the encroaching stun. So you can definitely use, for instance, your Hercules or your Nick Fury, who can go stun immune, and then you have one less thing to worry about. But for most part, what you want to do in this fight is just kind of parry and heavy, because Flux Dispersal will reduce your damage output if you do not heavy frequently. But on top of that, you do have Heavy Assault. He is going to be gaining power quicker, but it's not really the biggest deal. You can definitely do this fight with a Mole Man, Magneto, I don't know, pretty much anybody that has decent heavy attack, to be honest. I think in one of the runs I used Warlock. And then again, keep in mind that APOC can go stun immune with 4 charges, Nick Fury can be stun immune, and Hurt can be stun immune, avoiding encroaching stun. And that's kind of like the biggest thing that you want to prevent, avoid. Not a hard boss fight either. So far, so good. Let's move on quickly to 743. 743 is again a path where a fight quest where you can just stun lock your way to the victory. And that, I believe, was the Civil Warzone lane. This one. Superiority, underdog, none of that matters, none of that matters. What matters here is whenever the defender is struck, they gain an indefinite armor up buff, and whenever they use special attack, they convert those armor ups into Furies. What you want to do is bring your Ronin, and just make sure you activate special 1 before they can shoot off their special 1, and then the entire fight they're stun locked. You can use Ronin for every single fight on this path, so Ronin is the only thing that you need for the victory. However, keep in mind that this guy you can still do with Ronin, but you can't really stun lock him, because he reduces your ability accuracy if he reduces your ability accuracy for armor ups that he has active. So when he reaches like 5-6 armor ups, you have 0 ability accuracy available to you. But however, Ronin will still get all the attack bonus, and he's still gonna hit like a tank. Just don't try to stun lock this guy. That's about it. Right. That being said, aside from Ronin cheese, we do have, one second, let's find the center. We do have, not this one, this one's quite annoying. Paradox block lane, which is very easy as well, especially for Mole Man, for Ultron, for Joe Fixit, anybody that spams damage over time effects. Because we again have the debuff potency increase, which means our debuffs are going to go and do a ton of damage. So only thing that you need to do is parry a bunch initially to get rid of that quantum lock, which is power lock, and then be aware that Falter might kind of drop on if you're playing very passively. Mole Man's also perfect because you get very easy intercepts with Foresight, and then you have 200% attack increase, and on top of that you can get like 250-300% potency increase on your bleeds. Joe Fixit melts any champion with damage over time effects absolutely destroys this lane. So if you do not have ranked up Ronin available, don't stress. This path is also extremely easy, extremely fun. And then moving on, the next one is the path that I did initially, which is Cosmic Fracture, which basically just lets Cosmic Champions hit really hard. Only thing there you need to keep in mind that you should not be knocking the defenders down if they have 6 or more armor breaks. Otherwise, there's pretty much nothing to worry on this lane, and your Cosmic Champions just basically get the damage increase. So this is also a very easy and doable lane. Whichever one you want to do, it's entirely up to you. If you can Ronin cheese, Ronin cheese. If not, go have fun with damage over time debuffs or your Cosmic Champions. When it comes to the boss fights, Purgatory is the easiest fight, and the key to fighting Purgatory against Hubris is to use power sting effects or damage over time effects, because she's going to be taking very little damage outside of her special attacks, but whilst she's throwing her special attacks, any damage she takes then is significantly increased. That includes damage over time effect, that includes any passive damaging abilities and power stings. So Mr. Fantastic with She-Hulk synergy and any champion can destroy this fight. I destroyed it with Human Torch because she takes a ton of damage over time effects during a special attack, thanks to Human Torch, and obviously we get a ton of Smolders, Spider Ham, and Yellow Jacket, all of whom were fantastic for this fight. Now, King Groot was kind of annoying. The key here is to always get rid of his debuffs, and then you will be the one who gets the Fury. Alternatively, you can just ignore the nodes altogether, assume that he is going to be unblockable for part of the time, and use like Ghost or Kitty Pryde. But you can also use champions like Black Widow Deadly Origins, champions like Sunspot especially, can deal with these fights quite well, or a King Groot of your own potentially. But for me, I think it's just best to ignore these nodes and just use, you know, champions that do not necessarily rely on parrying, and accept the fact that King Groot's going to be unblockable and hit harder for a portion of time. And then we have Mangog. And this Mangog is somewhat annoying. You want to have access to Unstoppable in order to deal with the guy, because he does place staggers on you, however, if you stay close to him. So Nullify immunity is also extremely advised. So Thing, for instance, is quite a good option here, because Thing can also get rid of Mangog's Unstoppables. But whilst you have Unstoppable, you're going to be dealing quite a bit of damage. Initially, I used champions like Overseer and champions like Thing. Then you can also use basically anybody, I think. Yeah, you can pretty much use anybody, to be honest. You just need to keep your distance away from Mangog, not do 5-hit combos, keep an eye out for those staggers, and fight and flight. But obviously, yeah, Thing is kind of like a perfect counter here. However, my recommendation is definitely Purgatory. Right, let's move on quickly to the next quest. And next quest, finally we're actually going to be picking up the pace here, because I recommended only 2 parts for last 3 quests, so this should be a bit quicker. I apologize for taking as much time as I am. Right, so first lane here that I do recommend is this Power Shield. Sorry, where is the Power Shield? Is this the Power Shield? Yes, this is the Power Shield. Power Shield, Recharge, Enhanced Parry, Power Gain, Spite. And yeah, that's basically as it reads. Opponent is going to start gaining power with Spite whenever you parry, or obviously Dex. So, well, one way to deal with it is don't use Spider-Man 2099 or Red Guardian, and you never, or even Mr. Negative, for instance, and you're just never really going to have buffs active. But it's Recharge, it's Power Shield, you can cheese it with Ghost, you can cheese it with a ton of champions, you can cheese it with Corvus probably too, because of your power control and stuff. So, you know, you just go and have your fun. Every time you parry, you get a significant amount of power as well. So Spite is something to deal with, but in this context, it doesn't really bother anybody that much, to be honest. And the second lane is this, I think that was Moth to the Flame, Matador, Power Build Up, which doesn't matter in Aggresso. So Moth to the Flame just means that you want to land plenty amount of basic attacks before you use your special attack, and that is going to give you Fury buffs. And then you have Matador, which changes the way you gain power. You gain about power whenever opponent uses special attack. I used Corvus for a ton of fights on this lane, because Corvus actually gets like every mission. First fight is Hulkbuster, so obviously Corvus dealt amazingly against that Hulkbuster and got his missions. Then you can gain, and you get Avengers mission and Tech mission. Then you gain, I believe, Mutant mission against Gambit, and somewhere along the way there was that auto block mission as well, if I'm not mistaken. But that is an easy lane definitely to do. And looking at the boss fights, the easiest boss fight, in my opinion, here was the Annihilus. You can just kind of pretty much use anybody. Use just your Mystic champions and you're going to be good. This Odometer can make Annihilus go unblockable for long periods of time. But, well, that opens it up for Miles Morales cheese. And, however, at the same time, you know, any Mystic champion is just going to do fantastic here. Nullify his Rod, nullify his Furies, gain a ton of power. Use Dr. Doom, Sorcerer Supreme, Claire, whoever you want. It's not a hard boss fight. Against Mojo, this Mojo is somewhat tricky because of the Oscillate. No Surrender node does help you against the degen damage that you would take. However, at the same time, you do have this node wherever you parry, you gain a Fury, and there's Bubble Shield, and it's still fairly annoying mojo. It's doable with Torch and some other champions, but it's not as easy as Annihilus. And Super Scroll, well, iHulk can cheese this Super Scroll and a few other champions can because of that bullet time, because you can build up a bunch of charges and just nuke the opponent down. But I still kind of recommend going for the Annihilus and any decent Mystic champion just to clear him for the completion run. Right, let's go to 745. 745 should not take much time either, because 745 has a stun lock path that you can pretty much stun lock all the way to the boss once more. The only fight that you can't stun lock is this Medusa, but it's Paradox Dodge. The base idea is you need to dex, again, 10, 11 times. You have this entropic generator, and then you're going to be gaining a ton of power. Now, the fact that you get rooted every 8 seconds kind of can be annoying. For this Medusa fight specifically, I just use the skill champion that shrugs off, in my case Kingpin, but you can use also, I don't know, Shang-Chi, have your shrug off charges active, or whoever you want. But once you are done with this Medusa, then you can just, again, get to about 10-11 charges right here on this Paradox Dodge lane, and just infinitely stun lock opponents and cheese your way to the victory. So only fight that you actually have to do is Medusa, and after the Medusa fight, you are free to have fun and do whatever you want. And following that, what is a super, super easy lane on this one would be the Fighting Fit lane, where we have Hazard Shift, Incinerate, and Poison, and that's kind of pretty much it. You do get armor break every time you take a hit and a block, but you can use these lanes to absolutely cheese opponents. Every time a skill attacker is immune or purifies a debuff, you gain a Fury, so skill champions here are going to be ideal. I actually cleared a ton of fights on this lane with Taskmaster. Taskmaster was insanely good. Kingpin did phenomenal. Or you can just use a champion that works with Hazard Shift. Keep in mind that because of the juggling up, once you drop your first heavy attack, you're going to go Incinerate immune, and you just basically need a Poison immune champion. As long as you have anybody Poison immune, you can do this lane very easily. But yeah, Taskmaster and Kingpin definitely cheesed it for me. I'm sure Mole Man and plenty of other skill champions would absolutely cheese it with a 350% attack increase. So that was very easy, very straightforward too. And let's find the bosses. Where are the boss fights? Here we go. And the easiest one, I think, is Namor. The only thing that makes the Namor kind of somewhat tricky is this powerful from afar. But once Namor enters his rage phase, then he continuously loses power and basically can never level 3 you. It's a biohazard fight where you do need somebody that's bleed immune or copes with that quite well. And this Crisis of Opportunity is just kind of like a balancing node. It's similar to Encroaching Stun, except of being stunned, you get a degen. Or if opponent is using special attack during that time, they gain a Fury, but you're still safe. I did this fight with Ultron, I did this fight with Nimrod, I did this fight with a bunch of different champions. It really isn't all that hard. I think Namor is probably the easiest champion. Just keep in mind Biohazard, and that is about it. Especially because he's also aggressive, he typically throws his special attacks quickly, so deal with Biohazard, no problem. Killmonger is easy fight for any power control champion. Dr. Doom did a phenomenal job. I'm sure that there will be plenty other champions that do. There is Power Shield, so your specials will do a lot of damage. Only thing to keep in mind is that you do want to continuously parry, and then you're going to armor break Killmonger, and you don't have to worry about reverb. The one thing that makes this tricky is because he's going to be gaining a ton of power. That is exactly the reason why you want somebody like Doom or another champion that can power control. But that is about it. Bring in basically any Mystic champion that can spam special attacks and you're going to be good to go. Armor breaks built in the fight. It's not hard fight either. And the last one, this one is a bit trickier, where we're not going to go into too deep of a detail, but you can use like Kingpin, Mole Man, Archangel for these ones, but it is a harder fight. So I do recommend Namor probably or Killmonger, depending which one you feel more comfortable with. Both of them are very much so doable. And the final quest, this has been 24-minute video, my apologies. And the final quest, I'm going to recommend 2 paths once again. And Kang Guide is going to be coming out hopefully later today. Hopefully. But the easiest fight, again, the easiest lane here is this one, the one that starts with Diablo. because of entropic generator, and that means that you can stun lock. I uploaded a video just before this one showcasing how you can stun lock on this path. Same principle as on the lane before. Only difference this time is you gain charges by knocking opponent down, which is actually even easier. And the only exception fight on this lane is a Mephisto for what you ideally pack in Human Torch or whatever else that can deal with Mephisto. Super easy and quick and fun time dealing with that. And then the second option is this path that is basically made for techs. If you have an armor up buff, every time you parry, you will be power draining the opponent, so you can spend every single fight without letting opponent drop a single special attack. Defender is passively unblockable if you don't have an armor up effect, but just bring in Warlock or whoever starts with armor up and you're going to be fine. Hulkbuster was fine here too. And that's it. That's it. You don't need to worry about this or whatever else, because, yeah, you just, you know, parry them a lot and they're going to be power drained infinitely, and you can make sure they never even get to use a special attack. Right, that's about it. That is about it, and Kang guide should be coming out later today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and before I go, I will showcase this again, just as a brief summary. My path recommendations for each and every single quest. Boss recommendations I did along the video, but I'm sure you can figure that one out based on whatever champions you have available. And yeah, now off to Kang guide later on today. See you, folks. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next